Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
In a world where podcasts are a dime a dozen, one show dares to stand out from the rest.
The Film Board, a podcast unafraid to tell it like it is.
We're here for one reason and one reason only. Downloads.
That's right. We review new release movies because that's what gets people's attention.
But just because we're in it for the clicks doesn't mean we don't take our job seriously.
We're part of the Next Reel family of film podcasts, and we're proud of it.
Our reviews are just as insightful and thought-provoking as any of our other film podcasts.
It's just that this podcast is all about that sweet, sweet SEO.
The nectar squoze from the tree of Bing.
We're only human, but we're also creators.
And creators eat clicks to survive.
So if you want honest, unfiltered opinions on the very latest movies right on opening weekend,
delivered with the self-awareness of a team looking for downloads,
then tune in to The Film Board,
where every download counts, but yours counts the most.
Hey Pete, ever wonder what Steven Spielberg's favorite film is?
You know, Andy, I've heard he loves classics like Lawrence of Arabia, Meet Me in St. Louis.
Imagine chatting with him about why those films resonate with him so much.
That's exactly what we do on our podcast, Movies We Like. We've had incredible guests like actress Dee Wallace, cinematographer Eric Messerschmidt, director Steve Miner, and former Disney animators Tom and Tony Bancroft.
They share their favorite films and the impact they've had on their careers, offering fascinating insights into the craftsmanship and storytelling techniques that make these movies so special.
If you're curious about the magic behind the scenes, subscribe to Movies We Like from True Story FM on your favorite podcast app. New episodes are released on the fourth Monday of each month with early access for our members.
Join us on Movies We Like as we explore the movies we all like with the people who make them.
And Stephen, our people will call your people. Let's make this happen, puppy.
Subscribe today.
A quick note. You are about to hear an Adrian moment first. A lost episode. How is it lost? Well, it was recorded back during the 2024 World Series and then, like baseball, became less important to the American public. Foreshadowing. So please forgive our current references to an event 6 months old and for the 4-letter words you may hear during the bonus section. Now, back to the moment. Hello, world. Welcome to the Adrian Moment on TrueStory.fm. I'm Ocean, and I'm joined this week by the chapel to my Sinsky, Jim Pullen.
What's up, Sinsky? How you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good, just enjoying being the ugliest wife in baseball. Speaking of baseball, how's the World Series going for you?
Oh, man, that's a rough question. First of all, I didn't intend it to be a trick question. Baseball, but I am neither a Dodger fan or a Yankees fan. So this is a very difficult World Series for me to watch. Growing up in San Francisco, I was a Giants fan until moving later on in my life into Seattle and becoming a Mariners fan. But as a Giants fan, you just cannot cheer for the Dodgers. And just under basic principle, unless you grew up liking the Yankees, you just can't root for the Yankees. They are the evil Vaders of the world in the way of baseball. Good guys on the team, though. I can't hold it against any of the guys on the team. Like in past Yankee years, you could be like, oh, that Yankee team sucked. But you know, they all seem to be really good guys and whatnot. But I can't root for either team. And the Dodgers are definitely going to be taking this. You know.
Yeah, as of this recording, the Dodgers are up 3-0. So either the Dodgers won in short order, or by the time you hear this, you will know about the massive comeback that the Yankees mounted.
Yeah, I mean that would be a cool story. It would be. Not many times has that happened in World Series history, but it has happened, and the Yankees are primed to do it if certain players can learn how to hit, because some of them are looking like just a bunch of wet bags right now, and that's going to be their problem. So, okay, as if Aaron Boone can't pull his head out either, there's some issues. There's some coaching issues going on, and the Dodgers are just having a good time. I think their motto is "We don't fucking care" either. So that's a good one.
Yeah. How's your
What about
baseball
you?
career growing?
What says you?
Like I give a shit about the World Series. It ain't Game 7. I haven't seen it. All right, so I'm like, I don't even know who the people were you were just mentioning. So then, how's your baseball career going?
Baseball is going great. Kicking it back up again this year. Has been nice. I haven't played for over 25 years, so my season is now over. Fall ball is completed, and now it's just in the rebuilding for next year. I'm taking what I've learned from this year and gonna move on to the next season and apply that during this off season.
Will the next season be in
training
the spring?
and mental aspect?
Will the next season be in the spring?
Yeah, next season, yes. So it'll be February is when the team will start up again.
And then when does the season go?
Games won't start until March.
Okay. And how long does it last?
March to June.
So then how does it feel getting back to playing?
It's been hard physically. At first, I was working on it for a year, and then getting into that physical aspect of it, just like going and hitting and throwing with some friends and stuff, and then you get into the game and you forget about some of those game time moments. Like you're sitting there in the batter's box and you're trying to lock in, and you hear all the distractions and whatnot. Or if I'm on the mound, I'm also a pitcher, and I hadn't pitched in 25 years, and I hadn't faced live batting in 25 years, so there's different things that you forget about until you're in that moment. And just being able to try and figure out a way to like clear the mechanism.
Clear the mechanism.
Clear the mechanism, which is something that I took from a movie that perhaps you've watched recently.
Perhaps. What movie is that?
For the Love of the Game.
After 19 years in the big leagues, 40-year-old Billy Chappell has trudged to the mound over 4,000 innings. But tonight, he's pitching against time. He's pitching against the future, against age, against endings. Tonight, he will make the fateful walk to the loneliest spot in the world, the pitching mound at Yankee Stadium, to push the sun back up in the sky and give us one more day of summer.
Universal Pictures presents For Love of the Game.
So why did the For Love of the Game create something that inspired you in your own playing?
I think, at the time that it came out, I was just finishing up playing baseball. I was still trying to think like I had an opportunity to be something. And then you just realize, nope, I'm not going to be what you had hopes of as a child. And but when that movie came out, I remember watching it initially and just looking at it in such an amazing way. When he says clear the mechanism, it instantly brought me into those kind of moments of when you're a competitor and you're out there and you have to focus on the task at hand. And his task at hand is just clearing the mechanism, clearing everything that is around you, all that noise and all that, so he could focus on a particular pitch. And there's something to be said about that when I initially was watching the movie and then also watching it for our podcast, that it just really resonates with me, that moment. And I don't necessarily say clear the mechanism when I'm playing, but I just remember thinking when watching this movie that that's a pretty cool way to illustrate what a competitor sees or what they're feeling or hearing, and then as you're able to clear the mechanism, it just brings the focus.
Really? So then do you think that the phrase itself and bringing the focus is in effect that you are deciding to feel about yourself as if you're a machine instead of a person, because you're referencing by framing it that way, it's almost like that you need to allow the machine of you that is now going to either pitch or hit a ball to come out.
Right. Yeah, no, I never really thought of that, but yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to coin it that way, yeah, but I've never really thought of it like in robotic terms or anything like that, or
isn't it? I mean, like if you think of a lot of other phrases, typically you're still you still refer to yourself as a person. Like even with like, now that I'm thinking of other baseball terms I've heard in movies, like if you're using your lizard eye, that's still like a humanoid thing. But when you say it's a mechanism, if you're clearing the mechanism of the fish, then it'd be like, well, this is like a mechanical thing. And so it's not, it's like, you're not human. You're a machine. You can't be stopped. You can't be reasoned with. You can't be bargained with.
Maybe that's why I never made it, because I never really thought myself as like the machine or anything like that. But
okay,
I could definitely see that the approach to a plate is going to be different for everybody. The approach to facing a batter as a pitcher, everybody's going to have something. And Kevin Costner's something was the clear the mechanism.
I felt that was also just the tune out the crowd noise, which you have to be able to do in something like that. But then to pivot a little bit on this movie, I think that the crux of the movie is a slow burn love story. It's not as much of an action-packed baseball movie, although I would quibble there's no such thing as that. But the story is a love story about his life, not only his love for baseball to one degree, but also his love for Jane. And given that you saw this twice, once way back in the day, and then once again now, or at least twice. Have you seen this more than twice?
No, only twice. Only twice. So it was like sometime, call it like 2000, and then just yesterday.
Right. So then, how does your memory then differ in the case of it when you saw it back then? You're single, you got no kids, you're probably watching it primarily for the baseball, and then you see it now. And not only are you older and old enough to understand and really empathize with the end of a career like this, but also older in that, that you've gone through love, you have kids, you have all this, you've gone through much more life. Did it dramatically change the way you view this movie?
Just a point of clarification. It was with my wife at the time when I first watched it.
So then you didn't watch it in theaters? Because this came out in 99.
No, I didn't. I did not see it in theaters.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Right. So like a couple of years old.
Okay.
But as far as like what I remember and what I took away what I remember thinking when we put this movie on our list, I'm going to talk about it like in that way. Because I remember just thinking, man, clear the mechanism, and just like some of the baseball isms that are going on during the baseball scenes stuck with me for 20 plus years. Like I remember all those scenes as I was rewatching it. But then like the whole love story aspect, I remember thinking there was, oh yeah, no, this is just a love story. It's got some love story. And then rewatching it, I was like, wow, this is pretty sappy. It's like cheesy love story. This is spreadable, cheesy love story. It's enjoyable, but
it's thick love story. Yeah. It's thick.
See, I see.
It's thick love story for sure. Cheesy. Well, I mean, whether or not it's thick with cheese or sap or whatever you want it to be, there's parts of this where, I don't know if it's the writing or the way certain lines come off here and there. There are parts of it that don't really work. But as a whole, I found I wasn't bothered by it. It's an interesting dynamic as far as how they framed it. They have the first night where he's in the hotel room drunk, because he got stood up by Jane, then sees her later, and then she's going to London, which of course then means the end of their relationship implicitly. And then what is it? She's like, all you never needed was a diamond, and the baseball diamond. You don't need me, blah blah blah, right? And at this time, it's interesting is that you have no idea who she is, and you have no concept of, oh, okay, well they've been in a relationship for quite some time. The interesting thing about the love story construct to me was how what the movie decided to do is take advantage of the slow pace and breaks of baseball to then have it where he would go out, pitch his inning, and then sit down. And then since he's an American League pitcher, as they have in Detroit, he's not hitting. And then from there, just allow for, while the hitting is going on, he could then think about a phase of their relationship. And I found that to be an interesting construct in terms of how to do it.
Right.
But also made it where in effect, then in the middle of this game, he's just thinking about the history of his relationship. And then what is it? The first thing he thinks about is like the first day they met, which was this whole, he stopped on the side of the road and picked her up, which really was an interesting trope of how to do it. I think they did a good job of pulling it off, which I was surprised by, but it does still seem really like, really, this is how the meeting was? You just, she's on the side of the road and you stop and
come on, she was kicking the crap out of car.
Sure, sure she was. But at the same time, it's like, well, the tow truck driver arrived shortly thereafter, which then to me screams because, it's a tow truck driver in New York. So what do you think? She was standing there for like an hour?
Oh, yeah, good point. He did have to skip 3 other jobs to get out here, honey. I think
Exactly.
He said,
Exactly.
Right?
He did. And then, but more than that, then it becomes like, okay, so she was standing out there for that long and nobody stopped to help before
Nobody
you
else
came
stopped.
along?
And really, nobody else was driving by at that time either. Like there was traffic
No,
noise,
there was tons
but
of traffic here.
to that point, like he was the only one that stopped. That's how rude New York is, people.
It is. Yeah. They just don't care out there.
They just don't care.
Yeah.
So many people drove by.
And getting past the meeting part of it, the love story is so pervasive in it. So did you like that structure?
I really liked it. I love it when stories are able to take the vehicle, baseball, and use the vehicle also as part of the story. And what I mean is, their first encounter, their first meeting, their first over the night date is in between the first innings, the very beginning of the game. So I like how, you go to a baseball game and you're going to guarantee see 9 innings of a Major League Baseball game. So to be able to see that his life story in the way that we're seeing it is relatable to the game. First inning, we see her, stranded in her vehicle, and he swoops in and picks her up. And then I think, the next inning that we see is like maybe the third inning. I don't think we see the second inning and the third inning. Maybe we do at the beginning.
I think we do because he takes her to the game. Right when she picks him up,
right.
I mean,
her first game.
Her first game. Yeah, you want to go to a baseball game with me? Which is like, I mean, let's face it, that's going to work as a pickup anytime you do it. If you're like, once you get her to say yes to the baseball game, and then you find out that like, oh yeah, but I'm going to pitch in the game, and yeah, so that's going to work.
Yeah, that is a suave move.
Yeah,
I like that because we get to see the beginning of the relationship, and it's also the beginning of the game.
So effectively, then the intertwining of this in that the relationship is building as the game is moving forward, even though the game is. Building in a different way. He wants to then be with her, but she doesn't really want to. And then like they're, I guess they had the whole Ross and Rachel, but we were on a break. He finally gets her to be kind of on board with, hey, maybe this could be a real relationship. And he sleeps with his masseuse. And then she shows up in, I think they were in Fort Lauderdale. Is that right? They were in Fort Lauderdale when that happened?
Yeah, it was down. Yeah, it was
spring training.
It was spring training.
Yeah. The relationship itself and the key parts of it, and about not only then when they finally do decide that they're going to have a relationship, but then the odd way in which she reveals her kid, and he was accepting of that. And that was the one thing about it too which I was wondering was it's Kevin Costner, so he kind of has like a dad look to him anyway. But was there any part of you that thought, okay, well, once the kid came along, he'd have been like, all right, well, I didn't sign on for all this, because he was really accepting really quickly with the kid. And so did you find that part to be believable, other than it was just Kevin Costner and he was doing the Kevin Costner vibes?
I mean, he was given the Kevin Costner vibes, right? He goes and picks her up. They don't really have much of an interaction, and then they're on the plane together. And, and she starts telling him stories.
Right. You're talking about the daughter?
The daughter. Yep. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
So, he's there and he's picking her up. Perfect opportunity, right? Like she's in Boston and they're playing in Boston, and it just so happens to be the end of the series, and he can go ahead and pick her up and take her back to New York because that's where they're going to next. Happen chance, right? I mean, first of all, that was one thing that I found kind of weird.
The plot demanded
it. Sure. I mean, it was plot demanded, and somehow it worked out perfectly on a very crazy Major League Baseball schedule. First of all, the Mariners would never get that kind of travel schedule.
Wow.
Detroit got it.
Wow.
But anyways,
the Mariners got in here. Okay. So
yeah, the Mariners aren't even in the movie, but that's a sore subject with me in our travel schedule.
But there's only 2 teams in the movie, but anyways, really, right? Isn't always
right.
I guess the Red Sox are implied because they're in Boston, but they don't really bring up any other games. They just bring up the Yankees game and the Lions, the Tigers, the Tigers, and that's the only real game. Other than that, there are certain cities they're in, and those teams are implied if you happen to know which teams there. Which most people will know that the Red Sox are in Boston. They don't dig into any other games or any other part of the season.
No, I'm sorry. I had my own personal feelings. But so to me, it was the travel aspect was unbelievable for happenstance. But to answer that back end of your question, like, would I expect that character, to just be like, well, this is weird. You never even told me about this. And now I'm picking her up and here she is and I'm out. I'm bouncing. Clearly the plot demands more. But his character, I think, the way that it is implied, he doesn't really have anybody that has been his wife. There's no mention of a wife or anything like that. the other players' wives, when she goes to her first game and she's wearing all the Detroit garb, one of the players' wives leans over to the other players' wives and is like, "Oh, this is the blonde of the week." So clearly he's a
is that what she said? I never heard what she said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what she said?
Oh,
okay.
yeah. No, she said, yeah, it's the blonde of the week. Yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah, got it.
So, to me, that implies that, he's never settled down, right? Just the vibe I got, even on the initial time that I watched this, as well as the second time, I really was trying to look at that and be like, is this something that he could have just slid right into? And I think his character would have, because it's his 19-year career. He wants to settle down. He gives off that vibe of like, I'm ready to settle down. I don't want to play. Even though he was more than willing to go ahead and be amenable to her position on their relationship. He walks her home and they're on her doorstep and she's like, what you do on your own time is what you do on your own time. But when we're together, we'll be together, and it was like, all right, well, that line resonates. I get that. I follow. And, Kevin was cool with that at that moment too. And then it seemed like the more and more that we get introduced into their relationships and the things that they're doing, they're hanging out in the off season later on in the game and later on in the movie. It's somewhere remote and it's all snowy and beautiful and cold. And, they're spending time together. So clearly it's more than just like, hey, when I'm in New York, we're going to get together. So to me, at that point in time, yeah, this is the time for him to step up and be like, this isn't scary. I'm here to help.
Yeah, but did you, even with that, were you under the impression they were actually together at that time? Because when he drops the daughter off, he goes to just leave.
Yeah, no. Because I think they were just kind of like,
well, it was the next scene after she was in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
She's in Fort Lauderdale. She then leaves, and then the next time they interact, it's this.
Yep.
So that was the part to me that I was like, well, I don't know that I buy. The cynical part of me, I was like, I don't know that I buy that he's, gonna just be like, yeah, fine, you got, I'll be, I guess, if for lack of a better term, stepdad. Now, granted, the daughter is old enough to be, not consequential to life, and what I mean by that is like, not that the daughter is inconsequential to her life, but that like it's not like a baby.
Oh yeah, no, I got you. So dependent.
You take care of you, right? Exactly. Like you take care of a teenager, but a teenager has they're trying to get away from you more than they want you to like take care of them all the time. So therefore there's, it is a very different dynamic at that point. And so then they, and as they show, they, move forward and they, start becoming like the, I guess for lack of a better term, they start to gel together as a family and, enjoy each other's time together. And, they ask Billy Chapel a ton of questions for reasons. Like, that was one part of it too I didn't quite follow. Did you get any value out of that, of the whole, like, that he's asking questions? Because then it to me was like, well, this must be miserable for him. Like, that's what it seemed like. It seemed like they were trying to portray that he was in misery.
For which question?
All the questions.
Which question?
When the montage
they're on the phone together.
Yeah, no, the montage when they're when he's with the daughter, everything like that. They play Monopoly, and that part's great. And then after that, he's getting peppered with a bunch of questions about the chicken and about like what's this and what's that and everything. And then after a while, he's eating something. He's like, please, no more questions, right? And it's like it was like he was getting beat down into this area of misery in his life. And so I thought that was interesting. So to me, I thought it was interesting where it was like, well, so up to this point, it's all been about love and everything. And then now that you've kind of gotten the whole family thing together, it's like you're now just like a miserable, it's like, okay, I'm married
on the
and
downward
now, like your regular movie trope of how oh yeah, he's marriage is miserable and it's a grind and a drag. So it seems to be that they were doing that,
and they've only been in it for like 4 years.
Well, they hadn't at that point.
No, that's crazy. I did not
at that point. It's only been a couple of years, but he just seemed so like he was getting beat down and dragged down and not like it, because that was one of the longer stretches of where they did only love story and not movie. And it seemed to be that the arc of it was where he is that in a sense he's being dragged down and this has gotten miserable for him. And that's how I read that. Did you not think of it that way?
No. This is how I read it. I read it more from the baseball perspective. Like, that's the first grind of the end of the off season. And he's like, I can't wait for the season to come around. Like, I don't know why I went.
Really?
I went completely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I just went to that's what I went to.
Okay. Yeah. Cause they do the questions and he's like miserable and then he cuts his hand. And then he says that the trainer is the most important thing to him. And at the time, I'm thinking, well, yeah, the trainer is the most important thing to you because it's your career. That doctor or whatever. And then she's all crestfallen because she's like, you should have thought that I was the most important thing to you, And that to me was more just, I really felt that they were just trying to capture that, hey, in the middle of all of this love story, there's this point of where he's just miserable.
No. I just took it as like, it's, and I only say that because of how I've heard some professional players talk about the off season. Like the off season, it's you're training and you're with your family and all that, and there's a grind, and then you get ready for, and then you get ready for the season. And in some interviews, some guys are like, yeah, you're there at the house all the time and you don't realize everything that's going on, and I can't wait for spring. And that's a lot of the mentality of some of the baseball players. So I just have put that, I guess, that thought into mind. So when he's sitting there and we're watching him grind through these questions and all that, I'm just thinking, dude, just can't wait for spring.
So then you think, then what you're saying then is you're saying that in your opinion, the mentality of most professional baseball players is the offseason basically sucks?
Well, no, I think there is a majority of the guys that enjoy their time, but then there's those things that you just don't. Certain baseball players have mentioned that there's certain things that you just don't know because you're out on the road all the time. And then once the off season hits, it's like, yeah, this is all well and good. And then like on the back third of it, all they want to do is get to spring. Not every player, but there have been players that I've heard mention that it's the back half of the off season and it's been a grind, and I can't wait to get back to spring training and doing what I do and doing what I love.
Exactly. So because you want to get away from this misery.
And it's his first introduction into it. So
yeah, but like, isn't that also then saying that they're trying to get away from this misery that is their everyday life?
I guess so. Yeah. Just, yeah.
Okay. Well, no, I thought that was, and hey, I could be looking at this all wrong, but I thought it was an interesting way to, in a sense, you're trying to make this into a fuller adult love story, in that it's not all peaches and cream the whole time, and that he has these moments of where it's just, he seems to be abjectly miserable because his hand, and he says that one line, and she, it's a thing where I think I don't know if it's a gender difference in how you would see that situation, because in that moment, I would be thinking the same thing he was. It's like, look, he effectively created the accident that everybody could see coming a mile away. The second he put that bat into that little saw thing, I was like, dude, you're going to cut your hand. And the next thing I know, it was like, yep, there it is. And the fact that he did it in such a convenient way, right? To just slice the webbing and not actually cut off a finger, which I thought was an interesting skill set he had.
There was.
Yeah, that's just kind of, there's a whole like, yeah, how did you even do that? But fine. Accepting that he did it, and that, that it moves on from there, and that he was saying that that's the most important thing, which I get, because at that point, it's not a life-threatening injury, really. I guess you could bleed out from it, but it's not.
No, but it's career-threatening.
It's career-threatening more than life-threatening, because even when they go to the hospital, she is, there's an aspect of it where, the doctors aren't really paying attention to him, or anything like that, because, there's, it's not life-threatening. It is only threatening. It is only a big deal because of his career.
So let me ask you, did you watch this with Michelle? Because I watched it with Angie. We watched it together. Did she have a similar response to that scene? Like, did Michelle have an expression on her face like, what? Why would he say that?
Oh, I doubt it, because it was, well, you know what? I don't know, because I recognized what it was. When I saw the facial expression, I was like, look, I've been around, in effect, I've been married long enough to know that, oh, okay, she took that personal. That she thought that what she said was, you're the most important thing to me, but also it'd be great if we get my hand fixed, because I'd like to keep my career going. But baby, you are still more valuable than my career. So as long as I'm with you, it's all good. And that's what he was supposed to say, instead of what you would be thinking, which is, at the end of the day, his injury is not life-threatening. It is only career-threatening.
Right.
And that's what, the doctor's reaction to him was actually kind of fine, because they were like, look, this, we have other people here that are that have more life-threatening things. He's not gonna die from this. But the speed of it had to be just because you need to fix his hand soon enough, so that way he could get as much of the ability of it back, because it was his throwing hand.
The reason why I was asking was because Angie she was jokingly saying like, oh, how dare he? And I was like, well, And we broke it down the way that you broke it down. She's like, no, I totally agree. Like, yeah, you got to go get that hand fixed. I'm here. I'm good. You're good. You're bleeding, but we'll just put some stitches in there. Yeah. Maybe a surgery or two. You'll be fine.
So then once he moves on from the injury, then at that point, really the whole rest of it is they've broken up. They've moved on. He's, he's dating other people, blah, 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 whatever. Right. And that's kind of what I find happens there is that the love story for me after the injury loses some of its steam, because then it just becomes, okay, well, this is, look, we know you're eventually supposed to get back together because that's just kind of what's supposed to happen. So, I've seen enough of these movies to know what the deal is. But then at that point, it becomes more about the baseball game.
Right. Yeah. Because now we're at the end of the game. And now it's coming to those pivotal moments of, is he going to be able to go through?
Well, that's when you realize he's pitching a perfect game. And then, the Adrian moment of the movie.
Oh, the Adrian moment of the movie.
Yes, because that is when it happens. Because this movie, which was surprising to me, was that the Adrian moment of this movie had nothing to do with Jane's character. It was all Sinski when he knows he has nothing left and he's saying I had nothing left. And then Sinski's like, the boys are all here for you. We'll back you up. We'll be there. Because Billy, we don't stink right now. We're the best team in baseball right now, right this minute, because of you. You're the reason. We're not going to screw that up. We're going to be awesome for you right now. Just throw. So anyway, that really was the moment of where you have more inspiration about what he is going to be. The moment of the inspiration for what it is he's about to do from an athletic standpoint. And that at the end of the day, you could argue that she was at best just okay with the fact that he was a professional baseball player. Now, granted, let's face it, the money part would be good, but that seemed to be something that she tolerated more so than supported.
Right. And she was never about that lifestyle. So, it's not like she was looking for any of that. She wasn't a groupie or anything like that. So she could have cared less about all the accolades or anything, or the money or anything that comes along with the baseball. She found it annoying in some of those scenes when people were coming up to them and like, hey, Mr. Chappell, can I get your autograph? And, she's taking that deep breath, like, oh, geez, not another one, Mr. Chappell. She didn't necessarily care about all that because, hell, he took her to her first baseball game. So...
Well,
it's not like she was a major follower.
Was it her first baseball game? Is that what she said was her first?
Yeah, that was her first.
So, okay.
Because that was part of his whole pickup line. He's like, do you like baseball?
When he realizes it's a no-hitter, he gets the pep talk from his catcher. And then he throws 3 wild
beautiful
pitches that are all
moment.
Balls. Exactly. Beautiful Adrian moment. Throws 3 balls and then starts to dial it back in. I guess, what did you think? At that point, did you think that up until then, we were seeing who he really was the person from the relationship, and that's what we were seeing, and then this is just the thing he could do? Or was it that all the relationship before were just things he could do, and now that he's gotten his moment and he's understanding that it's the 8th inning and he has a chance to be great at this thing, now we're seeing who he really is?
Yeah, I think it's a double entendre for both. It's that point in time in his career in that game that he has to make that decision. Like, I'm pushing through this. And it's analogous to their relationship. Like, how am I going to push through this? She's leaving. She's gone. How am I going to get through this? And right then and there, as he's grinding through it on the diamond out there on the bump, he makes his next decision, is I'm going to London, but we don't know it. We don't see it yet.
You think he made the decision then?
Yeah, as he's grinding through that. As he's grinding through it on the mound, he's also making the decision, I'm going to London and I'm going to retire. Because after he's done grinding through that inning, what does he do? He signs on the ball, give this to the nephew, and it's his final decision. I'm through. I quit.
So you think he was doing that because he had actually decided he was going to go after the girl, and not because he realized that he can go out on top, he can do a John Elway. He can have this perfect game or whatever. It's not John Elway with the championship, but he can do a thing of where he has this last great moment, and it's like, if I do this, then let's just end here, because it's all going to go downhill from here. He was already he didn't have a winning season. He was already on the back. He's already on the backside. The owner of the Tigers already said, hey, maybe you should think about retiring. And so that he thought, well, hey, he could not give what he expected he could give to his real true love, which was baseball.
It all comes full circle right there, but both for baseball and for the relationship. So the relationship, he makes that decision right there. I'm going to London. Again, we don't know it just yet. Right after the whole pep talk from his catcher. He gets this beautiful pep talk, the Adrian moment. He's not going to tell anybody that his arm is hurting. He's going to finish this game. Why? Because he's a gamer. He's been around for 19 years. He knows what's what's there. You got history on your side, the whole 9 yards. This was 1999, so depending on 1999 and the true relevance of baseball at that point in time, right now, today, in the year 2024, there has been 24 perfect games thrown in the history of baseball. 24. That's it. So in 1999, at that point in time, there was 17. 1998 was David Wells' Yankees. He threw a perfect game. 1999 was David Cohn. He threw a perfect game. So, to imagine knowing that you've lost 143 games, which I think Chappell said at one point in time in their dates, that's how many times he's lost. I think it was one of their first dates he mentions. So he is that consummate professional player that is going to get you those 30 plus starts every single year. So he realizes this is one of my last chances. They want to trade me. I've always been a Tiger, and I've only ever want to be a Tiger. My relationship is downhill. My arm just blew up. I have nothing left in a tank. I'm going to push through. And I think it's full circle relevance for his relationship. He's making the decision that he's gonna go and make this up to her somehow, some way. And it's full circle for his career, because he has to make a decision by the end of the game, either be traded or retire. And he doesn't want to be traded, because that means he's got to keep going on and on and on and dealing with this pain. No, he wants to move on. He wants his next chapter of his life. But at the same time, he can't say, I stop now, I'm out. He knows what's on the line. The 18th perfect game in all of MLB history. I mean, that's amazing, considering the storied history of Major League Baseball. It's almost 150 years old. Only that many players have ever thrown a perfect game.
Are each perfect game different players? So no one's ever done it twice then?
Ooh, good question. I don't believe anybody has ever thrown, maybe in the 1800s, but I don't believe anybody has thrown multiple perfect games. Multiple no-hitters, yes. But the distinction between the two is, no-hitter is you have people who have made it to base. A perfect game is nobody's made it to base and nobody's hit.
So a no-hitter could happen if you walk someone.
Right. Or hit somebody, right? Hit by pitch. So this is truly perfect. Nobody has gotten on base. There's a 0 base percentage for the team, 0 batting average for the team.
Okay.
So to me, in that moment, the Adrian moment helps propel him in understanding what he needs to be able to do for what he wants out of life, as well as what he wants out of this game and what he wants for the rest of his career.
I guess I see what you're saying with that. I guess I didn't really tie the two together. I felt that it was much more of he had to let one thing go before he was willing to grab onto the other, that he didn't decide then. He decided at that point that he was out for different reasons, and then he was then decided what he wanted to go do. But you know what? Your interpretation probably is better than mine. This movie is a very sappy, feel-good love story of a movie. So I think I'm being more cynical than the movie deserves.
Well, I don't, maybe cynical, not better or anything like that. I don't, not for comparisons or anything, but thank you. I appreciate it. But, it's a beautiful love story with an homage to baseball.
Want to hear more of us? Become a subscribing member of the Adrian Moment. It is just $5 a month or $50 a year and really helps support our show. Today's bonus content is a discussion about the societal impact of the World Series. Still a big deal, or doesn't matter at all? Listen to our learned opinions on the subject in our bonus section for subscribing members. To become a subscribing member, click on the link in our show notes. Whether you decide to subscribe or not, we at the Adrian Moment thank you for downloading our show. Well, that's a lot of talking about love. So let's talk about baseball for a minute.
Let's talk some baseball.
Then with this movie, between the love story plot points, what did you notice more? That the baseball games and how it was being depicted in the movie, or his relationship with his teammates?
I'm thinking about the game, man. I'm thinking come on, let's go out there. I want to know what's going on. Like, if it's the first time that I'm watching it, yeah. I mean, I'm remembering Oh yeah, no, it's definitely a perfect.
No, I mean now that you're a seasoned adult and not some young punk kid that doesn't know what love is, like now, like were you still thinking about the game? So then, what for you then early on in the game, when it was just a vehicle to serve for flashbacks? What about the game?
Nothing, because there's not a whole lot that's going on. There isn't much that's going on in the way of baseball at all. Like you get a glimpse of it because he's up there. You get to see that, in the first inning, he punches out the first three guys, right? And you get a.
Did you say punches out?
Yeah, that's what it's called when you strike somebody out.
Okay, so he strikes him out. Okay, because when you said punches out, I'm like, he doesn't punch him out.
That's what, look at the umpires. Like when they're like, oh, you're out, right? It's a punch out. Like I'm doing the motion. Like it's a punch out.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a punch out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Okay.
Go ahead. So he strikes out the first three batters, but then you are then for the first 7 innings focused or remember and appreciate the game second.
That's probably the best way to
say the relationship with the relationship with the players is third. So even so then do you feel that with that hierarchy, then did you feel that there was any emotional impact to Sinski scoring the
symbolic, first of all, to me, because they're sitting there and they're talking when he's warming up, and coach comes over to him and is like, hey, we can't have Zelensky ain't pitch. I mean, he's not going to be your catcher. He names the other guy, and he's like, nope, it's either him or I'm not. Right. I mean, it's
Sinski or nobody.
Right. It's Sinski or nobody. Right. And you can't hit. We need a left-handed at bat in there. No, it's him or nothing. Okay. I don't ask for anything. Right. So yeah, there's not a whole lot of love that is thrown at him. Other than tiny little tidbits. You get a little John C. Reilly on the bench. And then he gets the hit. Everybody's excited. It's a double. Vin Scully, who's doing the announcing, is talking about, he hasn't legged out too many doubles. Vin Scully says, for those of you that don't know, Vin Scully was the announcer for the Dodgers in Brooklyn and in LA. And he retired like 5 years ago or 6 years ago. And then he died, unfortunately, recently in the last couple of years. But he also did all the Fox games too.
Are you saying Vin Scully was still doing games 5 years ago?
Dude, yeah. Yeah, he did. He was doing only home games for the Dodgers before COVID.
Okay. Yeah, he's so old that I've heard his name. He did
every big baseball game that was either on Fox or ABC back in the day.
Well, the whole movie's on Fox, so that tracks.
Right, so that tracks, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So anywho, to me, it was symbolism because you got Chappell who believes in him, and I need him to be my catcher. He's gonna, if you get a hit, it's a cherry on top that's what Vin says in his first at bat, and it's meaningful to the whole effort that Chappell's moving towards in this perfect game. Even though at the time that the run is scored, I don't think he recognizes that it's a perfect game at that point in time. To me, it's very symbolic and it's meaningful for that pitcher, for that individual. Like if your battery mate does something good for you, pitcher catcher relationship, man, there's something special when you have a catcher that connects with you out there on the hill. He's only throwing digits, and you guys are picking up way more than the digits that he's throwing in his crotch, like fastball, curveball, 1s, 2s, 3s, and pointing elsewhere. There's a certain vibe that you get with that catcher, and if you have that relationship, those kind of things, legging out a double like that for you while you're on the mound, it means the world to you. It's because, especially as an American League, at that point in time, American League pitchers weren't hitting, so best way to represent your efforts out there offensively is through your catcher. So when you have that relationship and he's doing something like that, it's very meaningful for a pitcher.
Okay, so then I guess there's one other thing I was curious about from a movie standpoint that to bring up that I found interesting. So even though there was the least important thing to you, there is a relationship he has with his teammates, and the movie was made in '99, which is before a lot of things had changed in Hollywood with diversity and other things in movies. Really diversity in movies. Did you notice it or find it interesting that the two teammates that he really interacts with outside of Sinsky, his clear ugliest wife in Major League Baseball that he has, that they were both black? The one that had the one that did the Jose Canseco where the ball bounced off his head and became a home run. That guy was black and he gave him a little pep talk. And then the best friend that left for money and then was the primary player that there was a begrudging respect for. They had the other Yankee guy that was like the hotshot, I guess, bad guy of baseball because he had to be. I don't know what his deal was, but the other one was his begrudging his friend who went to the Yankees for more money. Which, yes, of course, that's why you go to the Yankees, is to get more money. The fact that the movie made in '99 had those two characters be black when they didn't need to be. You could have just put two white guys in those same roles, and the movie would have played just the same. Well, you know what? I don't know that it would have played the same now that I think about it. Granted, I'm looking at it through the eyes of a black man and going like, hey, they got brothers in here playing baseball, which, you just don't see that in general. Watching it now, obviously at the time, I doubt it even hit the radar at all. But watching it now, is that something that stood out to you at all? Or is that just that you thought, oh, that's just what it should be?
I remember actually taking a look. There was one scene, they're all walking as teammates. And I can't remember when I saw this, where in sequence it is in the movie.
It's at the very beginning when they're walking in the airport.
Yeah. Is okay.
Yeah,
so
that's at the very beginning.
There's like two white guys and a bunch of black guys, right? And I remember trying to think about like baseball in the 90s.
I don't think they're black.
Oh,
I thought they were more like Mexican, Dominican. Like when you see the whole team. Yeah, when you see the whole team, I think most of those guys there's more Latinos. I mean, there are black guys in there for sure.
There is.
I think I didn't think that they were.
I just remember thinking yesterday when I was watching it, I don't recall seeing that much diversity in baseball in the 90s at that time. Now, to answer your question about the people that they stayed in contact with, or his friends and everybody outside of his ugly wife from in baseball, I didn't really think of anything of it. Major League Baseball had always tried to promote baseball within the black youth with there's a couple of different programs. There's the Jackie Robinson program, and there's another program too that was predominantly for youth. In today's baseball world, there isn't enough black people in baseball, and I'm trying to think if that was something that it was even. I'm all over the place, man. I didn't really think of it like that it had to be, or it's just okay or anything like that, that it was just, those were the two characters. I don't know. Would you, so
you didn't notice it
didn't.
At all? Okay. Well, then I guess that is a type of progress, but then you are a progressive person. So we'll see if that trails with everyone else. So when I first saw the wife, when she was the one that helped her out, okay, my initial thought, of course, is that, this movie's from the 90s. So I was like, oh, okay, we got to have the supportive the supportive girl that's going to help out that, let's throw the black actors a bone. And then when the teammate moved and how that was a big deal and he was helping them move, that was early. So then that way it made more sense when they were hitting against each other, and that you felt a tinge of, you're rooting for both sides, because at that point the other player hits in the second inning. So at this point the game isn't some perfect game he's working on. It's just trying to win. The other teammate, he's in a hitting slump, and so it'd really be helpful to him if he could hit. And they do delve a bit more into the interplay of what he is really, Kevin Costner speaking to himself, right. as if the batter could hear him, but he's really talking to himself. And the interplay of that, like his pitch selection and what he's doing to try to then strike him out, but that how also that being able to get a hit in this situation and help out his team and everything, that would be very helpful for his teammate's career, and how you then have almost a mixed allegiance because it's early, so you still have a little bit of a mixed allegiance there, and then framing that in the context of that player, and then also the pep talk he gives to the player that had the ball bounce off his head, where he was like, you can go out and give him a quote or just walk with your head high, right. Move on, do the wall together, and they'll let him make a joke out of you. And so having both of them be black in a movie where teammates of Billy Chapel, Sinsky has a lot of lines. And other than that, the only other teammates that talk are these two guys. So it's one of the things of where effectively they have 4 Major League Baseball players that talk. 5 if you count the guy that was the kid that showed up at the beginning and the end because, why not? But they only have 5, and half of them were black. And in the 90s, that wouldn't have been common.
No.
You're right about I think baseball in the 90s, there were more black players than there are now. I don't have any data to back that up with right now. I think it's just more anecdotally that there were just more then than now for various reasons. That I just found it to be an interesting choice of a movie made during this time to have where, at least for one subset of characters, that 50% of them were.
I didn't really think of it like that, and really put that into thought at all. But it's a very good point, though. Let's talk about it in terms of like really both industries, acting industry as well as baseball, or a professional sport, Major League Baseball in the 90s, portraying what we're seeing. And Harold Reynolds has even said stuff about the declining numbers of black youth that are becoming interested in baseball and even playing and participating. And the numbers were up there for a while in the late 90s for youth playing baseball, but the major league numbers, it was declining. There wasn't many black folks that were playing in Major League Baseball or even in AAA, and then or in the lower ranks. And if I believe right, the numbers were starting to pick up at the youth levels in the 2000s, but it's been dropping continually, both at the youth as well as the major league level. That there isn't that many black men playing baseball anymore. And I don't know if they're not playing it or not making it, but it is a declining number, and it's unfortunate. So to your point, it's interesting that both these industries, not saying that the film industry also doesn't have many black actors in it, but that's a declining thing as well.
I don't think the number of black actors is declining. In baseball, yeah, I'll go there with you. Black actors, I don't think that's.
I thought
declining.
I saw something that there. Maybe it's in behind the scenes that there isn't enough like black producers. And
yeah, there was a lot of things with the Oscars when they did all the changes about how they were nominating best pictures, and,
right?
Like having more people that were. It wasn't that there weren't like the numbers of black people doing it. It was more just the concentration of they were all basically making the same movie.
Oh,
so instead of having other movies where they were, in a sense, you'd have diversity throughout all movies. You would just have it where this crew would be all white and this other crew would be, not all black, but like, the majority of all the black ones would be, working together on the same movie, so there's stuff like that. But there is enough of them. And so I guess though, the thing with that, the declining part to me that makes some sense, because in the past, baseball was the biggest money sport. It really still is in terms of how much these players make. I mean, baseball money, that's real. They make real money, guaranteed money. But the money part of it, of other sports, caught up. And then also there is a cost associated to playing baseball that is, I would argue, interestingly beyond football, which I would expect football to be more expensive.
It's insane.
But it's insane that it is, because it's like the parks or things like that, like, because you just don't have the same public baseball park sitting around like you used to and everything. I mean, you still have like, soccer fields and stuff like that. So
this is what I believe. All right. You could go and you could play traditional Little League. Traditional Little League is like, it's a couple of $100 if you want to join traditional Little League. You get like 12 games, maybe that, depending on your region, how many teams there are in your city. You get a handful of games, and at the end of the year, there might be a tournament. That's it. Okay. Everybody wants what they see with Major League Baseball. They want their kids to play more games. More games means you're getting better. More games means that, you're going to be seen earlier. Everybody wants to be part of that massive boiling pot, to be like, hey, I'm one of thousands of kids to play baseball and made it to the major leagues. Everything has gone away from Little League structure and has gone to travel team structure. Travel team structure is $3,000 just to join the club in my local area to play for 1 year. And it gets you into the tournaments that they participate in. and it gives you training and it gives you access to their facility and you get on a team if you try out and make it. But it's $3,000 just to be on there.
That actually makes more sense than even what I was saying, where that means then that they've removed, I'm the best player at my high school, so therefore, I get seen at whatever the next thing is. Whereas when you think about the big three, with basketball and football, AAU definitely is a thing, and there definitely is a pipeline for that for sure. But if you become the best player at your high school, then colleges will find you. And same thing, which I don't know if baseball, I know it used to work that way. I don't know if it still does. Like, I don't know if the best player at your high school is still considered something that colleges or minor league teams would want. That's more. I think it's
more. I still believe that it's more around the structure of travel ball. And then unfortunately what has happened, there are high schools that have always recruited players and stuff to be like, hey, why don't you come and go to our school, transfer to our school? But it seems like even what little I've watched high school baseball in the last couple of years, there are some schools in the area that do go out and recruit players to come to their school. And I don't know if they get them to move or what, but there's a couple of schools in the area that have like a handful of top seeded young men that are in the top USA. There's all these different ranking systems, but they're in the top USA rankings of like the top 100, right? And it's both for college and pro. So like there's a list for like, there's a couple of kids on a local high school team here that are on the list for, top college recruits, but they've also been creeping up into the top major league prospects as well for young high school students. And so the high schools are beginning to recruit more and more. And it's interesting that all of a sudden now, where you could have maybe one prospect in one region, now schools are collecting top prospects. And I think you're able to do that because of the exposure that you get from all the travel ball. And then whatever the schools gain from it, that's what I don't understand. It's not like these kids have like name and likeness in high school. It's not like they give a kickback if they make it to college for name and likeness. So I don't know what the value is, other than the schools are like, hey, look, we went to state every single year. There's a phrase within the world, like follow the money, right? You're going to be able to see where like you find the success. And then if you can follow the money, you can find the reasoning for a lot of success. Like take a look at the Yankees. They have the highest payroll. Take a look at the Dodgers. They have like the second highest payroll. So you follow the money, there's their success. But the success of that in high school baseball is like, who keeps going to state every single year and why?
Yeah, I think at that level, more of it is about winning. There are club sports, and that does make money. Sometimes you can make some money at AAU and various other things like that. But by and large, the motivation for people that are doing stuff in club sports and all this, recruiting and everything, is that they gain a satisfaction from it. They either want to win, or it is a thing of where, they could have some altruistic thing with the kids. But typically it's just that they, as the adult in this situation, wants to win. And that's what it is. It's not because there's not money. It's like all that cheating you'd see in Little League World Series when they'd have 14-year-olds or whatever playing in it and everything. And when you look at it, you're like, well, there's no money at the end of this. So that they're not cheating for money.
Right. It's,
they're cheating. It's just they want to win.
Right.
And, whatever it takes to do that. And that seems to be what happens at that level. It's the corruption, I think, is for a different
and the
reason.
notoriety, I guess, too, because then, it is something that you have the ability to put on your resume and be like, well, I won 5 state championships in the 7 years I was there, as you're applying to a particular, either junior college or whatever your next level.
It could be if that even translates.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that it does that in football. I don't think that it translates some, but not really. I just then finally let's talk about that. This movie is such a straightforward love story. I don't know that there is an attitude that like that if you were recommending this to someone. I mean, I don't know that there really is anything to warn people about it or say anything about it. I mean, I think the movie holds up for what it was. One thing that I find interesting about a movie that is now 25 years old is that it is as good now as it was then. So if you liked it then, you'll like it now. And if you didn't like it then, you're not going to like it now. And so that there isn't anything about it that seems overly dated. There are pluses and minuses throughout the whole thing, but I think it's just a generally good movie, and that it's really more of a love story than anything else. And so, as long as you are willing and ready for that type of ride, then this would be an entertaining movie for you. I mean, is there anything else you can think of as far as like how you would recommend this to someone?
It to anybody. You can be pro baseball, anti baseball. It doesn't matter. There is a love story here. I think my next thing that I would say is that it's the little engine that could. Like, there's a little surprise at the end. If you're paying attention to the baseball aspect, it's not that much of a surprise if you're not paying attention to the baseball aspect. So I think most people would actually enjoy this.
Man, Jim, it is always great to talk about movies with you.
And also with you.
If you really enjoy the show, please become a supporting member at thenextreel.com/join. For $5 a month, you will gain members-only access to bonus show content for this and many other shows in the Next Reel family of film podcasts. Like, rate, listen, and most importantly, share this podcast with anyone you know that loves sports and movies.
Do it.
So, Jim, in looking at this movie, one of the things I was thinking about was the whole structure of the end. And when I say the structure of the end as I'm defining it is Jane's experience at the airport. One of the things that stood out to me was how this movie was, and I believe at the time, accurately portraying the popularity of baseball. And that effectively this movie then to me started to feel like a demonstration of kind of the last gasp of this being a big deal. And I'll start my preface with this. So when Jane is going to the airport, three things happen. And then I now think maybe two of them would happen now. Thing one. So okay, so let me start with the premise. So the premise of this is it is in New York, but there is a Yankees game going on in the daytime. And it is where they can clinch the pennant. The Yankees they can clinch the pennant, they win, but they still have like 4 more games. So it's not like a do or die situation for them. If they do, great. If they don't, well, they'll just do it next time. And then they're playing the lowly Detroit Tigers. The three things that happens is one, when she's in the cab going to the airport, the cab driver refuses to turn the game off. 2, when she gets to the airport and goes into the airport lounge to wait for her flight, right, the game is playing in the lounge. And 3, the game was when she leaves the lounge because she's trying to get away from the game because she doesn't want to watch it anymore. The game is playing at random televisions throughout the airport. And so what I think is interesting is in 1999, all of this sounds perfectly reasonable. The one that I think can still happen is if the cab driver is still a big Yankees fan, that can definitely still happen. If the game playing in the lounge at the airport, I don't think that would happen anymore because this is not like, it wouldn't just be on. Like there was one thing where they had the loudmouth Yankees player, the Yankees fan that came out there and everything, and he wanted to watch the game. But remember when he showed up, the game was already on. It wasn't like he asked for it. So I don't think that would be the case. And 3, and this is also the most important, is that I don't think it'd just be on randomly throughout the airport. I think that at this point in time, because the time of the year, September, is definitely the daytime. I think that it's likely that this is a Saturday or Sunday. So there's like, I don't know how it's not football on now. Why I found all of that interesting is this, and this is what I want to talk about a bit more. I find it interesting how baseball is, from a societal standpoint in America now, is not as big a deal culturally as it was when this movie was made. And that this decline has happened without anything specific to point to as to why. The current World Series that we were talking about earlier has the multiple of the best players in baseball now. And it is barely a blip on the radar of a non-baseball fan. And so I was curious, looking at and I guess the final part of bolstering it is the ratings. If you look at the television ratings of the World Series over the last 20 years, it's like it used to, World Series used to regularly have at least 20, 30 million people watching it. Now it's only gotten over 20 million twice in the last 20 years. And that's because one of them was the Red Sox winning finally, and the other one was the Cubs. And other than that, nothing. This last year was dreadful. They had like 10 million viewers. And so I was curious then, like, since you clearly are a baseball fan, what is your theory as to why this decline has happened.
I think it's because of the amount of money that is being tossed around between the individual players, which it's not even just the individual players.
You mean how much they're getting paid?
Yeah, and also the teams, the way that it just continually is the top 10 teams that can shell out the most cash is going to be the teams that make it to the playoffs. So I think unless you know that you are part of that group, you're not going to tune in. I also think that there's the other aspect of, loyalty to your team as well. Some of the demographics. Let's just take the poor Mariners. We've never been to the World Series. We've never been to the World Series because I believe we've never even participated in shelling out enough cash. Yeah, sure. A couple of years ago, we made the playoffs. We had our first run in the playoffs for the first time in 20 years.
Well, really? So it was the first time since the A-Rod, Ken Griffey, that team?
And no, A-Rod, no, it was the 2000. So
yeah, it wasn't 2000 Ken Griffey Jr. and A-Rod and Alex Martinez. Was A-Rod already gone?
2001, the year that we won 116 games. That was the last time.
Right, but
A-Rod wasn't on there. Yeah,
he was already gone by then.
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been since then, right, that we've even been to the playoffs. I think a majority of it is the money. If you're not part of that demographic of those top 10 teams, I'm not going to tune in. Why should I tune in? I'm a majority of the fans. Baseball, secondly, has recently done a lot of changes to change the amount of time that it takes to watch a baseball game, where some people, they don't want to spend 3 hours to watch a baseball game, but the intent of baseball being the length of time with the 9 innings is that, you're sitting there and you're watching and you're talking and you're having a good time. It was intent to be a communal sport where the fans were all talking and having a good time amongst each other. But that's gone now because everybody's got their faces in their phones for the most part. Nobody turns around and talks to other fans unless there's, something said that somebody laughs at or, something. Generally, nobody's talking baseball at baseball games anymore. So I think I just think that the aspect of baseball has changed. People have changed. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been shushed at a Mariner game in all the years that I've ever been. Like, you standing up cheering. Hey, can you sit down? And it's like, I'm standing up cheering. There's 2 outs at the bottom of our inning. We should be cheering for our guys to hit. Or if it's one of our pitchers who's been grinding, we should stand up and cheer him on. But that doesn't happen all the time. So I think that the culture of the game has changed. You got all the money that's being thrown at it. If you're not part of that demographic, you got the length of time of the game. I think there's a lot of aspects that has just changed the culture of being a fan especially over the last 20 years.
And so you think those changes makes it where people would then tune out? Because that's really what I'm getting. Because what you're describing is more like it's changing. Like, but if you're a fan of a thing, if you're a fan of a sport, you're a fan of a sport. You typically stay.
Well, take a look at who's always been in the playoffs over these. If you take a look at the whole playoff bracket over the last couple of years, it's pretty much the same teams. This year there was a couple of different dance cards that got called out, which was great. Baltimore for the second year in a row, Kansas City for the first time in a long time, Detroit for the first time in a long time. That was great. That was awesome. And most of Baltimore is up there in payroll. Kansas City is up there. I think they're above the halfway mark of top payrolls. Detroit is at the bottom of it. They've really pulled together towards the end of the year. But if you're not a true baseball fan, you don't even know that Detroit was sucking so bad right into the halfway mark. And then right as everybody came out of the All-Star break, they started piecing together a couple of wins here and there this year. And then they started beating teams like the Mariners handsomely and easily. And they just picked up momentum and just kept going and going and going. But if you're not a baseball fan, you don't know that. So you lose interest. So the whole point that I'm just trying to bring is that if you take a look at the brackets over the last couple of years, you're always going to see the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Bostons, and as soon that's your huge demographic for the TV ratings. And if those teams continue to fall out, then nobody's going to watch. So, last year the Dodgers didn't make it, so the fan base falls off, and all the other teams have already fallen off because screw it. It's not my team. I'm not going to watch it. I don't want to watch all these teams that are continually there. I don't want to watch them. That's a majority of the fan base, I believe.
So then are you thinking then that baseball would benefit from a salary cap? Like that would help it, where if they could evenly distribute the money a bit more, or at least,
Well, they don't have a salary cap. They have a tax line. So depending upon, I can't remember, there's a level. It's like 190 million or something like that. If you are at the 190 million, then you get taxed a certain percentage. And then if you're at 220 million, you're taxed at a different percentage. And then if you go above that and it goes on for continued years, you're taxed at a different rate, you lose draft picks. There are penalties, but it's not enough of an incentive to stop somebody like the Dodgers, who just signed Ohtani to a $700 million contract where like 600 million of it was deferred until after the contract is over. So what's the incentive to not do that to Soto next year when he comes up for free agency after he's done with the Yankees at the end of this, probably tomorrow? The Dodgers are probably going to beat the Yankees tomorrow. Soto's going to go out. So what's the incentive to not give him 700 million that is 600 million deferred? If you know how to manage your business, that's each team is considered a business. So congrats to the Dodgers. You know how to manage your business to be able to afford to do what you did with Ohtani. So what's next? A $1 billion player? I mean, I realize these guys are unique. I can't hit a 99-mile-an-hour fastball. These people are one of millions of people that have this capability of doing what they do at a successful rate of less than 25%. If you think about it, right? These guys are being paid handsomely to fail more often than you succeed. That's the nature of the sport. If I'm an outsider who is just kind of into baseball, I'm not going to be interested hearing about somebody that made $700 million failing as much as they're failing.
Football and basketball and everything is similar. I mean, all sports have it where there's a good amount of failing. And so in that part, and they're all making, they're making really good money as well. Now, granted, the 700 million over, how many years?
I'd have to look it up. I want to say it's like 13 years or 14 years or something.
Okay, so 700 million for 13 years, and that's like, he's only 70 million a year. That's good money. That's like, well, you're in the 50 million a year range.
But it's deferred though. So it's like he's only getting like towards that cap, that 180 or 190 million, that first line. Like this year, he's only making $1 million towards that cap. Everything else is deferred.
And what they'll do is they'll have it where later on they're paying him, and then their current players will get more money with a deferred contract that goes out. Yeah, so it's all. Yeah, no, I get what you're doing, but I guess though only the money, because baseball players have always made an outsized amount of money compared to common people, and baseball has there I don't know that there ever was a time where baseball had real parity. So I don't know that was something that people wanted out of baseball, was parity. You since you are the bigger baseball player, maybe I'll phrase my question this way. The money part was always been outsized, and it is what it is. But do you feel that there was a period in history where baseball had parity?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
When was that?
I would have to take a look at it was in the 70s still. So like Ken Griffey Jr.'s dad was still working a full-time job in the off season, but was also playing baseball. Granted, he was getting paid Major League Baseball money at the time, which wasn't a whole lot. Definitely not like today's standards. I don't even know what the dollar amount was, but it wasn't a whole lot. Especially for a black man in the 70s playing Major League Baseball. He wasn't making as much as everybody else.
Baseball players haven't had to have other jobs forever.
No. That's the common misconception. It wasn't a big thing until free agency was actually a big thing. Like free agency was there in the 70s and whatnot, but you didn't go to another team unless you were traded for the most part.
Well, because you couldn't.
So free agency wasn't a common discussion until like the 90s. And that's really when free agency started blowing up. and money started becoming a bigger thing for players.
Okay. So then
so the commonality was definitely there in the 70s. And in fact, spring training was designed all around the time frame that the guys, like back in the days in the 50s and all that, you go back home and you go and be a farmer. You go back home and you go back to the iron workers. You would be an iron worker in the off season. Those guys didn't have to train and do anything. They didn't have to go and lift weights. They were doing like real man jobs,
Okay. So
then going back and being a professional baseball player for 9 months out of the year.
But with that, then is that in the 70s when you felt that the baseball had parity? So that when I say parity, meaning that most people thought that their team could win.
Oh, I thought we were talking money at that time for the players.
No, parity
for the parity between real people.
Okay, parity being defined as like what football has now. Everybody at the beginning of the season thinks their team can win. So and now you're saying that they don't, right?
Right.
And so but in the 70s, everybody thought their team could win.
Right. So there's been a couple of different eras of baseball, right? So I do believe that, the 70s and the 80s, any team had an opportunity to win, even if they weren't a big market team.
Okay.
And then more money started coming into play because of the demand of free agency. And then more sponsorships at that time were coming readily available. Then you had the Moneyball era, where it was that's more of like the 90s era of baseball, of trying to find the cheapest player to put out on the field that I don't have to pay you as much. And so that's the Oakland A structure. Their success in the 80s and the 90s was structured around what was known as Moneyball, so that because when somebody comes up from the minors and you put them on a Major League Baseball field, they have to make league minimum, right? So now they're making league minimum. So if I could structure a team that was predominantly league minimum guys, I can make more money at the ticket booth rather than having to pay all these guys, $10 million a year. No, I'll pay the league minimum guys. I'm going to find guys,
Yeah, but I think we're going a little bit far afield. What I was getting at. All that makes it where it's like, well, that's all talking about when things were being watched. What do you think? Do you think then that in a sense that at that time that you felt that there was more parity in the 70s, and that with the loss of parity and then the amount of money that each team has, loss of parity, really that's all it is, loss of parity. So the fact that there is no more parity, then that makes it where that's why people aren't watching.
Yeah. I mean, and one of the nice things about baseball, the story has always been there's 27 outs. It's any given day. It could be any pitcher's day. It could be any batter's day. It didn't matter. You didn't have to have marquee named players all the time to feel like you could be a winner. And unfortunately, in the last 20 years, the map of success, follow the money, has been these teams who make a ton of money make a ton of money, not only for their market, but sell out big dollars for big name players.
Okay.
I mean, in the last 20 years, the top 10 teams, as far as going out and sending out, shelling out that amount of money, have been the winners, with two exceptions. It was something like whenever Kansas City won in like 2010 or something like that, they weren't in the top 10 payroll. Tampa Bay one year, wasn't it? When they were in the World Series, they weren't in the top 10 payroll. There was another team. I just read an article about this too. There was another team sometime after 2010 that wasn't in the top 10 of payroll, but they were like 13th or something like that in payroll, and they won.
Yeah, but then, and so that is what you think, though, that people are turned off by, is the amount of money. Okay. And then,
right.
But then
I do believe so.
Why hasn't it turned you off?
Because I love baseball, man. I'm a baseball junkie. I mean, let's go back to like one of our first episodes. I openly said I'll stop and watch baseball because like I love baseball. I've been to a couple of high school games this past year. I've been, I've been to some neighborhood kids games and stuff, and like I just love baseball, man. It's just, to me, it's a beautiful sport.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that would, well, thank you for your insights and thoughts about why this has changed. Because I find it interesting from a societal fact that it was such a big deal and that it is not. And so I was just curious from a baseball fan's perspective why it has declined.
Yeah, it from my point of view, being the baseball fan that I am, it's sad that I can't go somewhere during baseball season, like a restaurant. Example, we went to Red Robin. Shout out to Red Robin. I love your endless fries. Thank you very much. But we went to Red Robin. They have tons of TVs, and it was a Mariner baseball day, and the Mariner game wasn't on.
Well, yeah.
There was no Mariner game on, right? And it's just, to me, it's just sad. That's my home team. I'm in my home city, and if it's on, it should be on their TVs.
Yeah, you kind of gotta go to a sports bar.
And I've seen it with the Kraken. I've seen it,
you gotta go to a sports bar for that.
But no, they had other baseball games on. No. That's the equivalent of the family sports bar other than Hooters, and I'm not going to take my family to Hooters, although I do miss the wings.
But I think that the interesting thing to me about it was more of a, I don't know. I feel that there's an aspect of it where maybe it became more regional or something. Like it just became, because like the part of what you brought up, which is something that I think is interesting, is the whole, if my team isn't in it, I stop watching. And in other sports, that doesn't necessarily happen. Like you'll get some fall off, but not like a whole swaths of, not like these massive declines in ratings because your team is out. Like it'll still, like football, they still watch, and even basketball, they still basically the same people still watching. That they may not care as much, it may not root as much. It's going to decline some as you lose the different markets. But the whole idea of I only care if my team is in, then makes it where there's that. But the other thing that I thought of, which is interesting to me, and this is an aside. I heard this, and I do find it interesting as well, is that there are not national baseball stars anymore. And what I mean by that is like baseball people that are known, across the nation. Like I still remember the first time I ever heard of Aaron Judge. It was funny. It was like literally 2 years ago. So I don't know how long he's been around. How long has Aaron Judge been a big deal?
10 years or so.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, I was having dinner with a friend of mine who's also like, he's a baseball fan. He's one of my college roommates, and his daughter is I don't know, 8 or 10 or something like that, and she plays softball. So I was talking to, because they live on the Tri-Cities, and we were out there for a track meet, and then they go, she's in our softball team, her number's 99. And then he goes, and then he looks at her, and this little 10-year-old girl goes, and he goes, looks at this little 10-year-old girl, and she's sweet as hell. And he's like, now tell him why it's 99. And then she looked up at me kind of sheepishly, and she's like, because of Aaron Judge. And I looked at her, and I was like, I don't know who that is. So
who's Aaron Judge?
Yeah, exactly. I had no idea who he was. And honestly, that moment is the only reason I know who he is now. And so because of that, then that ever since they never heard his name, then I was like, okay, because of that little girl, I now know who he is. But I don't know who he is for anything he's done in baseball. The only thing I even know that he's done in baseball is that apparently he's having a hard time hitting in this one. And then he got the 61 homers that one year, where he tied Roger Maris's record in the American League. But even then, all of that is just founded on the fact that I only know this guy is from that. I can't name another Yankee. I honestly can't. There's Shohei Ohtani, which honestly his name is so odd, and the whole that he's Japanese and can't speak English and has an amount of money and all that stuff. You kind of know from that. But like, I put myself in that category.
See, here's in a big huge scandal.
I'm sorry. What now?
He's in a big, huge scandal at the beginning of the year.
Because of the money thing. Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. At least I heard that one. The money one? The one where like his dude took a bunch of money from him? Or something else?
Yeah, his interpreter was taking money from him.
He took money from him. Yeah. But like, I guess
something
what I'm getting at is
$71 million and some shit.
Right, but what I'm getting at is that I have never been a baseball fan, right? But I've always known who they were.
Right.
Who the players were. There was always 4, 5, or 10 national stars of baseball that you would just know who they were. They would permeate throughout other industries. They'd be showing up at places. They'd be in various things. They'd be on Sports Center for random reasons. Like, there's like, I follow sports to a certain degree, and it's like, but I've never been a baseball fan, but I've always known who the big ones were. And it's like, it's like they're not being marketed nationally anymore. Like, I don't know. Cause like, it's crazy to me. Like now that I think about it, this is probably the first time in my life where I've only been able to name one Yankee. Like, even in the conversation we just had, you talked about somebody named Soto. I don't know who you're talking about.
You don't know who Juan Soto is?
Never heard of him. Who's Juan Soto? I guess he plays for the Dodgers? I'm guessing. Is that he played for the Dodgers?
No. He plays for the Yankees. No.
Okay. Yeah.
He started his career in Washington and then was traded to San Diego. And then San Diego traded him to the Yankees this past off season.
No, I totally.
So this is his first year with them.
Yeah, no, I totally believe you. I realized it even more when I think about it now. In that this is the first time in my life where it's like, oh yeah, I can only name one Yankee, and I can only name that Yankee because of that little girl. I've always been able to name a few Yankees. I can always name a few. Right. You always have these bigger named stars or people that you could just talk about in general, and then people would know who they were, and it's like. And I find it interesting that and it's not like baseball upset me. It's not like there's like, oh well, I'm not doing it now because they are like this, or anything like that. It just kind of just declined. And it's like, well, there's nothing about it that is like worse because I don't even necessarily agree with the original point. I don't think there ever was parity. When you look at these records of the World Series, like if there was parity, how are the Yankees always good? Like there's, almost no other sport really legitimately has that. The closest you have, well, I guess that's not true. In basketball, there is the thing with the Lakers and Celtics. They always come back around, but right. So that's not true. They are supposed to have that, but but when you look at,
then everybody was always wanting to be a Laker or a Celtic.
True. Also, yeah, right. With the free agency, then also too when they were drafting. Now, granted, there's early part, of course, where there's only 8 teams, but when they were drafting, the Lakers and the Celtics, one thing you got to give them is that when they were drafting and could lock people down, they picked well, and then they got lucky, right? Lakers got Magic, Celtics got Bird, right? It's like, and they couldn't go anywhere, So you got Lakers, you got Magic and Bird, and they can't leave. And then, so, because think about it now, now there's no equivalent you find in basketball of like, okay, we have a team that we have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then we're going to get Magic Johnson. Yeah, that's going to happen. Right. And so, yeah, so there's all that. But I guess that's what to me is interesting is the thing of how it's not like it's not like I watch less baseball now than I did 30 years ago. I've never watched the game. But I knew who they were. They were a bigger deal. It was permanent. Like the whole thing about that, like what I was talking about, the whole thing about how they were, the games are on the television. They're on the lounge. You can't get away from it. It's like, look, no, you could be dating the picture of the guy that's playing the Yankees now on the game day, and you can get away from it. You could go to an airport and get away from it. You wouldn't be permeating like that.
I wanted to make a point about that though, because I do believe that in New York, it's like that. I do believe you cannot get away from the broadcast of the game or the sound of the Yankees.
Okay, so you think
I don't have any found information to say that's how it is, but I do believe that that's how it would be in.
So you think it's specific
one of the two airports of Yankees?
So it's specific to the Yankees.
I think so. Yeah. No, if that scene was shot in LAX, I don't think that's happening in LAX.
Okay,
that's a New York thing, man. Those New York fans for all their sports, they're a different breed. They live and die and breathe that shit. And it's in your face. If you're in the region for the Yankees, it's in your face. If you're in the region and the other side of the tracks for the Mets, I don't think it's in your face because the Yankees presence is just there. It's just it's the
Mets,
Yankees.
I mean, people that are into the Mets really do proclaim it. So it might be there, because the Mets are kind of like that. Yeah,
they do, but
it's like Jets fans. Jets fans are absolutely obnoxious and they have one highlight. It's like, look, you had one game. One game. Other than that, you guys are the worst. You're one game better than the Cleveland Browns. One game. So
and Yankees are the fucking Cowboys of baseball. Like all they want to do is get you to be on their back for look what we've done in the past. And it's like, you know what? I don't fucking care. It's cool. You have 24 World Series, Yankees fans, or whatever it is. It's ridiculous. I don't care. Screw you, Yankees fans.
Yeah, they have.
You haven't won one for a while until they did.
They
27.
They had 27, and the last time they won was in 2009. Anyway, okay. So maybe specific to New York fans.